All sports, all plays. Yeah. All sports, all plays. All sports, all plays. 365, we making a plays. You talking the game, get you through the days. We're high in the court, the dime in the lane. Variety, topics never the same. All presentation, sports information. In the airways, taking the nation. All sport, all plays. They work in your faces. Grace up the field, so tie the laces. All sports, all plays. Network. All sports, all plays. Network. We on top of our game. All sports, all plays. All sports, all plays.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to ASAP Sports Minute. I am Ace from the West Coast, and you are actually being joined tonight by a very special edition of Sports Minute because tonight, that's right, it's going to only be myself, Ace, and I'm going to be joined by none other than J-Mac. How's it going tonight, buddy?
Well, not too bad. Not too bad. Just sharing this a couple more times before we get rolling, but I can hear and talk and listen, and let me start some of these videos here. Let's get on the I'll pull up the paparazzi real quick while I'm doing this.
Let's rock and roll.
Suzanne's Paparazzi Jewelry, 24/7 shopping available. 160920 is the code. Show her some love, like she showed us, from all of us here at the ASAP Network.
Yeah,
and
one of our sponsors, and the other sponsor, again, this is the housekeeping stuff we do before every live event. By the way, tonight we are live on Twitter. It's the first time for us. Hit us up on there if you're watching on Twitter. We thank you. Give us a comment so we know. Follow us live on Twitter. We thank you for that. And we're going to go ahead and go with our second sponsor here real quick.
It's the Misty Meadows, man. It's that patented barbecue sauce. I love it.
Telling you what, that's some good stuff, man. Some great stuff out of there. Sorry, yeah, I'm just sharing. Good. And anyway, yeah, some great stuff in there. And let's see, let's look. What else do we got? Oh yeah,
the shirts.
How do we win those T-shirts? That's right. How do you win those T-shirts? So, Ace, you tell us about that tonight.
The T-shirts are pretty simple. All you got to do is you got to like, comment, share. So you come in the comment box, you leave a comment, and the more comments you leave, the better chance you have at winning one of those awesome ASAP Network T-shirts. Because what we do is at the end of every month, when you leave all these comments, is we add them up, and then the very next month, we announce a winner, and then that person gets their very own ASAP Network T-shirt. And then let's say that you can't come on and comment because you're busy at work or whatever, but you still want one of those shirts. So all you have to do is hit up anybody on the network, myself, J-Mac, Freddie, Chris Brown, any of us. Just hit up somebody on the network and say, hey, I want one of those awesome shirts. And guess what? You can still have one of those awesome shirts. All you have to do is pay $14.99 plus shipping and handling. And we can go anywhere from size small to 2XL. Now, you can get bigger than 2XL, but if you get bigger than 2XL, it does cost a little bit more money.
Yeah, it's about $2 per size. It's around that. I don't want to quote that for sure, but it's about $2. It goes up about $2 per size.
All right. So as we know, generally every week, every Wednesday Sports Minute, we generally hit on a team with the top 5 quarterbacks. We're actually not going to do that tonight. We're going to wait till next week till we actually have our full crew back. But tonight it's still going to be some awesome topics. And then, of course, the first topic that we're going to talk about is we're going to talk about who we believe can beat Djokovic at the Australian Open that's being played right now. Now, I'll go ahead and I'll start with J-Mac on this one. So, J-Mac, you tell me, who do you think can beat Djokovic?
Can I answer? Nobody?
I mean,
I don't think he's going to lose. I mean, there's always that chance of losing, for sure. That's not, that's not saying that anyone's ever been a slam dunk or, 100% guaranteed. But I don't know. You got your usual suspects. You got a Rafael Nadal. That's the one name that comes to mind. I mean, Roger Federer. You got some guys that could beat him. I think they'll all be there in the end. I think all of them will be right there. But I think maybe Nadal. I'll pick Nadal. Can I pick Nadal? I'll pick Nadal.
I mean, that's completely up to you because we know that Nadal is still number 2 right now with Federer being ranked number 1. Now, here's the problem with that. Like, a lot of people are coming in and talking about can Nadal beat Djokovic? Well, here's the thing on that. Nadal has already come out and said he's got a bad back. He's got a back injury that's plaguing him right now, and he's already said that's not great. His back isn't feeling great. So we know how Nadal struggled against Djokovic last year at the very end when Djokovic came in and basically swept him in a championship game. And that was when Nadal was completely healthy. Well, he's got a bad back now. So with that bad back, I'm like, no, I don't think I really don't think that that's going to happen. I don't know how much longer Nadal is going to actually last in the Australian Open. But when we're talking about a guy who could potentially come out and beat Djokovic, there's a guy right now that people are forgetting about, and his name is Dominic Thiem. And the only reason I'm saying Dominic Thiem could do it, when you look at last year, so Dominic Thiem came out last year. He played Djokovic. He was actually beating Djokovic in a tournament 2-1. He had him. And then what happened? Nobody knows if he got nervous or whatever. But what ended up happening in that, when you watch that match, it's that he got maybe nervous, and then he started taking too many chances. And the problem is when you get risky and you take chances against Djokovic, you have to be able to successfully do those, because if you don't, he's going to cash in and he's going to beat you. And that's exactly what happened. Thiem got careless, reckless, and he did not take care of business. And Djokovic ended up coming back and beating him. Now, I think Thiem has learned his lesson from that. And I don't think that if he comes out this time and gets a couple sets lead against Djokovic, I don't think Thiem's going to take those same chances that he did last year. Even though we know that when it came to Djokovic, if you remember at the beginning of last year, he started on that 26-0 streak. He was the hottest, like the most on fire tennis player that was going. But then what ended up happening towards the end of last year, he kind of caught that little bit of a dry spell, and he started losing a few matches. And now we're wondering, is it going to bring into this year? And so now I'm trying to see what's going to happen at the Australian Open. Well, Dominic Thiem might be that guy who might be able to come out and take down Djokovic.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. All of that, definitely, none of that is too far off. I think that you're pretty spot on with all that. And anything's possible. And yeah, he had him two 2-1, like you said. So it could have happened, and it could still happen. So definitely.
But going back to that, so if Dominic Thiem wants to be able to beat Djokovic, when you look at last year, what do you think happened? Do you think that he might have got nervous because he thought, you know what, I have Djokovic on the brink. I can beat him. I've never done it. I've never been able to do it, and I can knock off the number one guy. And so he started getting a little bit reckless because he wanted to take those chances and end it right there. So
yeah. Well, I think what happens a lot of times, you get the top guy in the rope, and we've seen it in college basketball with a 16 versus a 1 a bunch of times. Like they're right there. And unfortunately, you start making just those tiny, tiny mistakes, just the littlest mistake, and it just goes into the quicksand effect, and soon you're in over your head, and you just can't get out of what you've been doing. And those guys that are ranked number one, like a Djokovic, I mean, he will feed off of those tiny mistakes and make you pay for that. And I think that happens time and time again. And that's probably pretty close to what took place there.
Yeah, I'll tell you what. Djokovic is one of the most ridiculous tennis players I've ever seen.
Yeah, for me, I mean, I definitely have him up in there. My personal favorite is Andre Agassi, but he hasn't played in years. So Djokovic has really made it fun for me to watch again. Fun for me to watch and be able to enjoy watching someone play tennis again.
Yeah, but when you're going back to Nadal, because you said that you have Nadal that could potentially knock off Djokovic, does that back injury that Nadal has right now, does that worry you at all? Because he said it's not. He said his back isn't great right now.
Yeah, I mean it does. Of course, I mean tennis. You got to move a lot. This is why guys don't play into their 40s much in tennis, because you got to be in great shape and you got to move. I mean, I probably haven't picked up a tennis racket in 5 years, but so the back would definitely it's going to factor into that for sure. But I just think that in the end, it's one of those competitive things. Like, he's going to be competitive and he's going to be out there, whether he's got to take a cortisone shot or whatever it is to make that feel better and be out there. I think that he's going to power through and be competitive right to the end of this thing.
Yeah. So Sarge is like, he heard I was around. That's why. And then Brandon's talking about what's the bet on this week in golf. Well, we haven't gotten that far yet, because right now we're still talking about tennis. So that one is still coming, because we talked about Djokovic and we still think now, even though you're saying that Nadal could realistically beat Djokovic, do you still have Djokovic winning? Because I do. I think he's still going to win it.
I think he's still going to win in the end. But like I said, if I pick someone who could take him to the end to be in the championship, take him to that last set, it's going to be Nadal.
1 and 2, right? 1 and 2, and then
I think no doubt.
And Tame is actually 3, so he's right there too. That's why I said Tame could do it. Now, when you actually look at the women's side, it's kind of interesting, because we mentioned Serena Williams. Now, Serena Williams is coming into the Australian Open. She's ranked at number 10 overall. Number 10. Now, do you think that that's kind of a little bit of a lack of better word that I'm trying to think here? Do you what's that word that I'm trying to think of? Do you think that that's a little bit of disrespect to Serena Williams, bringing her in at ranking her at number 10?
I mean, yeah, a little bit, I think. But
Serena
she's going to feed off that, I think, though. That's the thing. I think it gives her that competitive edge that's needed.
Serena Williams has 7 Australian Open wins. She's won it 7 times. She could realistically win it 8 times. And just think, right now she's 39 years old and she's still out there slamming the ball. So, I mean, this is crazy. 39, she's rocking it. She's still looking good. She's in the 3rd round now. And
yeah,
I mean, coming in at number 10. So she's technically an underdog. So to me, that is still a little bit of a disrespect, but I mean, you can for me, you can't forget about a Naomi Osaka.
So she's been very, very. She's played very well. She came into this tournament 4th, which I think is a little low for her, to be honest.
Okay, so you have Naomi Osaka that could potentially knock out Serena Williams, but I'm telling you though, in the end, I still think it's going to be Serena Williams. Now, It's really, really tough when I look at this because I'll tell you why. I am not one that likes to bet against Serena Williams because, as everybody knows, my daughter's named after Serena Williams. So Serena Williams is actually my favorite tennis player of all time. So going into this, it's really, really hard to actually not bet on Serena Williams. She does have a lot of competition in this one. In the end, though, I'm telling you, in the end, I'm still saying that Serena Williams is going to come out on top. The only problem is right now is that coming into that third round, there's actually an individual, though, that people are overlooking. Now, this is going to sound crazy when I tell you what she's ranked at because right now, she's 19 years old, and her name is Anastasia Potapova. Okay, so
I didn't know who you were talking about when you said 19.
But she's ranked at 101. She's ranked 101. But the reason why I said it's potentially that she could come out and beat her is because if you think, she actually won. She won the French Open. She was like 16 when she won it. And she's only 19 now, but she has a lot of talent. And so Serena Williams is starting to get up there in age. At some point, she's going to start slowing down. And this girl's young. She's quick. She's strong. And so this one, I'm like, Serena Williams, don't overlook this one because Anastasia can take you match for match in this one.
She can. I mean, she can, but I'm telling you, Naomi Osaka, she's 23. And I don't think you can overlook that either. She's 16 years younger than Serena Williams, so she's going to be able to move around more. You make Serena, I think that the key to beating Serena Williams is making her move. And I'm not saying she can't move, but you're going to have more of a chance if you tire her out in the first couple sets. And that's, you got to make her run.
So let me ask you this. You have Serena Williams at 39 years old. Let's say she plays maybe another 2 or 3 years, and then she decides to call it quits. Are you concerned about women's tennis once Serena and Venus walk away?
Well, that's actually a really tough question because, they have ran this thing for so long that, you can worry a little bit, I think. I think you can worry a little bit about tennis. But we do this every time. Every time a big name walks away from a sport, we're like, oh, do you worry about this sport? We did it when David Beckham left the English Premier League in soccer and came to America. We worried about that. And the English Premier League is more popular than it's ever been. And so, it'll be okay. We could say we could be concerned, but it's going to be all right because you're going to have those younger women that are going to come up and make something of themselves and make you want to watch tennis.
Yeah, but right now the only reason I'm saying I don't know is because we haven't really seen anybody that's going to come in and overtake them yet, like a Djokovic or Serena Williams, because you still have them who are out there still dominating the game.
Yeah, but and I get your point, but we said that we could have said the same thing if we were doing this, 20 years ago. We could have said the same thing when Pete Sampras and Andre Agassi walked away. We're like, oh, men's tennis will never be the same. What did we get out of that? And that's all I'm saying. Then you got Federer, Nadal, Djokovic. You got all them to come out of that. And then the same on the women's side when Navratilova, Martina Navratilova walked away, when Chris Everett walked away, when Martina Hingis, Steffi Graf, when all them walked away, we could have said the same thing. And here comes a Venus Williams and a Serena Williams. Serena dominating singles and them dominating together in the doubles. So again, we can be concerned and we can always say that, but it always seems like it's never as concerning as we all make it out to be.
You know what? I'm on board with you there. It's kind of one of those wait and see games because we don't even know how long Serena Williams is going to be doing it for. But I hope she sticks around for several more years so I can watch her get some more of those championships and continue to build them up. So then So then at that point, I can say that Serena Williams is definitely the greatest ever playing tennis. I'm waiting for it. All right. So now it comes to what Brandon was wanting to hear. So we're talking about the Phoenix Open from this past weekend, the Waste Management Phoenix Open. Now, if everybody remembers when we were talking about it, J-Mac and Messaround went against me, and they said they had Jordan Spieth, okay? I had Scotty Scheffler. I will tell you this. I came out here, and I said Scotty Scheffler's going to have a fantastic third round. And I said he's going to catch up to Jordan Spieth. Guess what? At one point, he was actually ahead of Jordan Spieth. He came back and took the lead on Jordan Spieth. And then Scotty Scheffler had that bad hole on 16. He shanked it, and then he ended up getting a bogey, and that dropped him back one stroke behind Jordan Spieth. I'm like, man, that was his chance. But what I don't want to take away from Koepka, because I tell you what, he came out and played a heck of a third round. He came out of nowhere. The dude was getting birdies and eagles all around. But the other thing is that's kind of interesting is when you look at it, is that there's one name to think about. And when you think about this name, he came in to the third day coming in at number 1. And then what happened? He completely fell apart.
Yep.
And that was Han. He came in like he just completely started getting bogey after bogey, and you knew he was getting frustrated. His fifth hole in, when he started getting another bogey, he's like, oh man. And you can see the frustration. I was kind of frustrated for him, but in the end, I was like, I have to go for Scotty Scheffler. We're going for Jordan Spieth. Now, we can even talk about the biggest movers in this tournament. When you look at about the biggest movers in this tournament, you can actually think about a couple different guys in this tournament. So, if I'm going to ask you the biggest shocker in this tournament, who was the biggest shocker for you?
Ooh, that's tough. Han.
Because he went from number 1, and if you remember,
I mean, I haven't seen a collapse like that. Honestly, in years in the PGA, it's been a while.
He went from number 1 and he finished number 10. That's how much of an epic collapse this guy had, and that was in one round. That was how much of an epic collapse he had. If this tells you anything, what number do you think he shot in round 3?
Round 3, I believe he shot a 65 in round 3.
No, so the par was actually 71, and he shot a 69. He shot a 69. That's how much of a bad round he had. Now, when you look at some of the biggest movers in this one, look at McIlroy. Going into the third round, he was like number 40. Okay, he came out and he shot a 64 in the third round. And he finished on the day, he was able to move all the way up to 13th. He was the biggest mover in this tournament. He came out and looked really, really good in that third round. Imagine if he would have played like that from the very, very first round.
Oh, no doubt. Yeah.
He shot a 64 in round 3. Now, this is the interesting aspect here. Now, the one thing I will say that I was wrong is, when I said that Scotty Scheffler was going to have a great round, okay, the par was a 71, and he didn't even really have that great of a round. He shot a 70, but the reason why he was able to catch up to Jordan Spieth was because Jordan Spieth shot a 72. And
I know.
going into round 3, Jordan Spieth was up by three strokes on Scotty Scheffler.
Yep.
Now, if you remember that final hole, because Koepka had just finished, and Koepka at this point was up by 2 strokes, and it was Lee's shot, and they're like, if Lee wants to have a chance at this, or even Scheffler could have a chance at that too. And so they're like, if Scheffler wants to have any chance at going to overtime with Koepka, what's he going to have to do? He's going to have to sink this for in eagle. And I'll tell you what, he was, I'd say, about 175 yards off the green, and that shot that he put on the green, as soon as he did it, everyone's like, oh, that might go in. That might go in. And it dropped just a little bit short of the hole when everybody's like, oh, he's going to do it. He's going to sink that eagle. Can you imagine if he would have sunk that eagle shot and you would have had Scheffler and Koepka and basically a putt off and imagine that, though. Imagine him hitting a 175-yard shot off the green and sinking it to give him an eagle to come back and tie Koepka. Can you believe that?
No, I mean it would have been a heck of a shot, that's for sure.
Talk about all-time clutch. That would have been an all-time clutch.
No doubt.
All right, so Brandon, answer your question about the bet, though. Since neither of them won, the bet was kind of a wash because neither of them won. So in the end, we got to give props to Koepka because he's the one. He came out. He played great in round 3, and he took it home. He took it home. So
He did.
congrats to Koepka. All right. So now moving on to our next topic that we're going to hit on is we're going to hit on our patented and lovable Green Bay Packers that we like. Everybody knows that we're Green Bay Packer fans, so we're going to touch on it. And we all know that Mike Pettin did not get re-signed as the defensive coordinator, so everybody was, kind of wondering what's going to happen. What's going to happen at DC? Who are we going to get? Is it going to be Wade Phillips? Is it going to be Jim Leonard? Is it going to be Gus Bradley? Well, nobody knew, but here's the thing. Green Bay actually offered the DC job to Jim Leonard. Jim Leonard decided not to take it, decided to go back to Wisconsin when he said in the end, Paul Chryst could be retiring within a year or so, and he has a feeling that he can get the head coaching job with the Badgers. That's why he chose to go back to Wisconsin. So who did Green Bay decide to go with? They decided to go with the Joe Barry. So a little bit of Joe Barry's background. I mean, it was nothing impressive. When you look at the last 2 teams he was actually DC for, he was defensive coordinator for the Detroit Lions in 2007, 2008. And remember that 2007 year that the Lions had, they went 0-16. And their defense was dead last in the league. And then they went to and then he was DC in Washington. It was like 15-16 was season. And then they finished like 17th and 18th in total overall defense. So, J-Mac, I have to know, before I throw in some more input and tell you some more that I've learned about Joe Barry, what was your first initial reaction when you found out that we hired Joe Barry?
Who is Joe Barry? I don't think I've ever heard anything good about this guy. That was pretty much my first reaction was, I don't really know who the guy is, but everything I've heard about him has never been good. So, yeah, I wasn't impressed, to say the least.
No, but here's some interesting information that I found out about Joe Barry. So Joe Barry actually coached for years with Vic Fangio for a very, very long time. And so Green Bay, especially Matt LaFleur, is looking at the defensive side and saying he wants to run the Vic Fangio type defense. So he thought, because he wanted to run the Vic Fangio type defense, and he thought since Joe Barry had worked for several years with Vic Fangio, he thought then who's better to bring in to help run that Vic Fangio defense than Joe Barry.
I mean, in the end, it makes sense, but I don't know. I don't know how this one's going to go, to be honest.
I mean, it does concern me a little bit because we have to look at this and think, what was Mike Pettin popular for? Well, Mike Pettin always liked to run that 3-4. But that's something that Green Bay always liked to run, was that 3-4 defense. Joe Barry, I think, is going to run the same thing. The only difference is Joe Barry likes to play a lot of man. That's what he likes to do. He doesn't play zone, he plays man. Except what he does with the safeties is he likes to actually take his safeties and actually play them back. So he likes to play 2 safeties deep instead of keeping one at the line of scrimmage. Now, when Darnell Savage struggled on defense, he struggled when he had to play back. And last year he took a step forward because he got to play closer to the line of scrimmage.
Yeah.
And so I'm looking at this going, does this mean that Darnell Savage is going to struggle? Does this mean that the defense is going to take a step back? I don't know.
It's tough to say. I mean, that's, we could sit here and analyze it all we want and see what really happens, but it's tough to say. It's tough. We've seen some bad DCs come in, and not just DCs, but some bad coordinators come in, and then they make it, they come in and they come into their own, and they end up as one of the better coordinators in the league. So that's our hope, I guess, at this point, that's what's going to happen.
Yeah, and then looking at defensive side of the ball, when you look at our corners, so we can start out with the corners, and you can look at their overall passer rating allowed. So obviously you have Jair Alexander, which was an absolute beast. Like, that guy's an absolute dog. He's shut down. He's probably top 3 in the NFL as far as corners. The overall passer rating that Jair Alexander allowed was actually 68. Okay, and then you can actually jump next to the other side, which was Kevin King. And Kevin King on the season allowed 108.8 passer rating when targeting him on his side. And we know that Kevin King is a free agent. So do you foresee Kevin King getting re-signed and coming back?
Well, yes, to be completely honest, I do.
Are you kidding me?
You know what? We have watched the same team for years, and I'm telling you, terrible history of bringing back the wrong players. Terrible history of that, and letting the other ones walk. So I don't know why I'm saying that, but I'm telling you that that's what's going to happen.
Okay, and then you have a Chandon Sullivan, which was our slot corner. And then when you look at Chandon Sullivan was the guy who actually allowed a passer rating of 94.6. So wouldn't say it was much better, wasn't a whole lot better, average, but nothing spectacular. So, and Chandon Sullivan is also a free agent too. So when I look at Kevin King and Chandon Sullivan, I'm like, we could definitely upgrade over them. And then you have Kadir Holman, which also, when he was targeted, he allowed a passer rating of 90.5. The only problem with that is he didn't play enough, so nobody really knows much about him. And then you look at Josh Jackson, which, oh my God, don't get me started on Josh Jackson, because I'll tell you, when he came out of college from Iowa, I said that Josh Jackson was going to be a beast. And I'll tell you right now, I was completely wrong. I was nowhere close. But is it because Josh Jackson hasn't played enough and hasn't gotten enough time? I don't know. But Josh Jackson, whenever he has played, was completely and utterly has been terrible. And I remember back from that draft. Yes, this is a freaking rant, okay? So I remember back from that draft when we traded up and they said, we're going to take – and I said, okay, they're going to go corner. And I said, they're going to go with Josh Jackson. And then they went with Jair Alexander, and I'm like, okay, well, they got a corner. And then it goes to round 2, And who did they get in round 2? Then they went with Josh Jackson. Like, okay, cool. We have our 2 futures at corner. We have Jair Alexander. We had Josh Jackson. I'll tell you, I was a lot higher on Josh Jackson than I was on Jair Alexander. All right? And I'll tell you, I was wrong. Jair Alexander came out. He became a star, and Josh Jackson became a dud. So I was completely wrong on that. Now, with the rant I was going to say is this. So last year, there was a lot of skepticism when Green Bay traded up to draft Jordan Love in the first round. Now, I knew that we had multiple conversations about it, and we said the reason why they traded up to draft Jordan Love in the first round is because we knew exactly what they did with Brett Favre. Brett Favre was there. They drafted Aaron Rodgers in the first round, and we're like, okay, he'll sit behind Favre, he'll learn, and will he come in and become a Hall of Famer? Well, he did that, but we didn't know he was going to do that. And now we look at Jordan Love, we're like, okay, they drafted him in the first round because we know that Rodgers is 37, going to be 38, so he's getting up there in age. We're like, okay, you have somebody sitting behind Rodgers to learn behind Rodgers. Here's my problem with this. This is my rant on that. Then you have Gutekunst, who comes out and says, well, I don't know if we're done drafting quarterbacks yet. Jordan Love is a project. What? That is not what I wanted to hear as a Green Bay fan. I was completely okay as a Green Bay fan with somebody with Gutekunst coming out saying he's our future. He's supposed to be our future. He's going to come in. He's going to learn behind Rodgers. He's going to learn the system. He's going to learn from a Hall of Famer. He's going to learn from one of the best quarterbacks to ever play the game, and then he'll be ready by the time Rodgers retires. I was completely okay with that. But then he comes out and says, no, we're going to draft more quarterbacks because Jordan Love is a project. Are you kidding me? If you were not going to stick with him this whole time, if you knew he was not going to be your quarterback of the future, why are you going to waste a first-round pick on a freaking quarterback? On a freaking quarterback. When you had wide receivers you could draft in the first round. When you had linebackers you could draft in the first round. Heck, you even had corners you could draft in the first round. And you chose to draft a freaking quarterback in the first round. And then he comes out and says, well, I really didn't think that there was a move that I could have made that made us better. What? Are you kidding me? So then second round, what did they do? Okay, I will say this. I don't have a problem with them drafting A.J. Dillon because I'll tell you, I think that guy's going to be a flat-out beast. A.J. Dillon's going to be really, really good. From what I've seen, he's going to be good. And then third round, you go with Joseph DeGuayo. Now, I don't want to harp on the guy too much because he did get hurt and missed pretty much the whole season. He only played like 2 or 3 games, so I don't know what you're going to get from there. And then now people are in these mock drafts are suggesting that Green Bay is going to draft a tight end in the first round. Come on, you have got to be freaking kidding me. So with me being a Green Bay fan, I'm like, it's time. It is time to finally take a first round pick on a freaking receiver. If you're not going to go out and sign anybody in free agency, it's time to draft a receiver in the first round. So, J-Mac, my rant is over, so I'm going to go ahead and give it to you.
It's got to be tough. I mean, you're coming out and you're like, do we draft for the future? Do we draft for need, or do we draft the best player available? Now, was Jordan Love the best player available? I don't know, and that's debatable. At that point, it's remained to be seen. So I don't know. It's hard, but we don't. We could pretend to be GMs, but we're not GMs, and we don't know why. And maybe they're doing it just for the fact of having trade collateral, or who knows? Who knows why they did it? That's what they did.
Yeah, but as a Packers fan, let me ask you this: does it bug you that they draft a quarterback in the first round and originally say he's our quarterback of the future, and then come out and say, well, we're not done drafting quarterbacks yet because we don't know he's our quarterback of the future, when you could have used that pick on somebody else that could have helped you?
I'm not big on receivers in the first round. Let me start with that. I'm not a big first-round receiver kind of guy because you go back in history, there's been a few of them that have been hits and that, but for the most part, receivers drafted in the first round never live up to the billing of what they're supposed to be. So do I think they should have taken a receiver? I mean, probably not, to be honest. Now, could they have taken a linebacker or a defensive lineman? Of course they could have, and it probably would have been a better pick in the end. But not a wide receiver. I don't really see taking a receiver in the first round.
Okay, maybe not a receiver, but it had to bug you that they went with a quarterback and then changed their mind and say we're going to draft more quarterbacks.
Yeah, I don't really know what's going on there. I'm not sure. I can't really give you an answer for that one. Yeah, it's definitely troublesome. Like, look at what you need and try to fill from that. If you're not going to bring in free agents, then you got to build through the draft. And if you're not going to pick anybody to build, then what are we doing? Why are we even picking guys at this point? But I think we're going to need A.J. Dillon. I think that was actually a smart pick. I think that we're going to need him because, let's face it, we're not going to be able to keep all of our free agents, and it doesn't look good for us keeping Aaron Jones this year. So,
or Jamal Williams.
I think we have a better chance of keeping Jamal Williams than Aaron Jones. That's just my personal opinion, but I think A.J. Dillon's going to be a bigger part of the offense next year, no matter which one of those guys we keep, if we keep either one of them. So A.J. Dillon was a good pick. Jordan Love. We could be sitting here next year, though. Just play devil's advocate here. We could be sitting here next year. Rodgers, please don't let this happen. But he goes out, breaks his collarbone again, ACL, whatever. Anything can happen in football. And then Jordan Love comes in and tears it up. And then we'll be sitting here like, well, now maybe they don't look so dumb for making that pick. I don't know, but right now. Yeah, you could have taken a defensive person in the first round. Just my opinion. I would have taken a linebacker. We're weak at linebacker. We could have had a linebacker in the first round.
Yeah, so from the reports that I heard, though, was that people that were there and kind of just watching him at practice, and people were talking about when Jordan Love was on that practice field and people were there just watching behind the fences and everything, they were saying that this is why they understand why Green Bay was coming out saying that Jordan Love is a project. Because they were watching him at practice and Jordan Love was nowhere near NFL ready. Nowhere near. And so when you hear that and hear that he's nowhere NFL near, and they wasted a first round pick on that, maybe it is because they figured maybe he can be that guy that can learn behind a Hall of Famer and learn fast. But we know how it went with Brett Hundley. That was not good. Brett Hundley sat behind Rodgers and still couldn't learn. He couldn't figure out anything. And then we go and trade for DeShone Kizer, and he didn't go out and learn anything sitting behind Rodgers. So far, we're 0 for 2 on that.
The only thing I can say to that is that Brett Hundley was from UCLA, and DeShone Kizer was from Notre Dame.
Yes.
Jordan Love's from Utah State, so maybe a small school. Maybe he'll actually want to play in the NFL and actually have a better drive than those guys did. That's probably a completely delusional take. However, I don't know. There might be something to that. Who knows?
I don't know. I'm just not big right now on the Jordan Love pick. I want to be. I want to see where it's going to pan out, but I don't know yet. I'm still waiting for that. All right. So that was basically our take on the defensive coordinator and a little bit of free agents there. So touching on, let's just talk a little bit about, let's say, the beginning of the NFL draft. And I want to see here that I am starting to hear reports on this, and I'm like, there's no way, because that would be the dumbest thing. But it would be a Jacksonville move. I will say that. It would be a Jacksonville move. But I am hearing some reports that Jacksonville could potentially take Smith the receiver from Alabama #1 overall before they take Trevor Lawrence?
They won't. It's a report.
That would.
I guess to me, I look at it this way. So if I'm sitting there as a GM, as a coach, as the owner, you come up to me as a media person and you're like, hey, any thoughts on not taking Trevor Lawrence? Is there any thoughts of taking Smith? And my answer is something like, well, I don't know. There's always a thought about everything. What are you going to turn that into as a media person? You're going to be like, oh, my goodness, Jacksonville might not take Trevor Lawrence. They're thinking about taking Smith instead. Did you hear this? And he spreads to the next person, the next person, the next person. I mean, it's media hype. I don't really think they're going to pass on Trevor Lawrence. I'm sorry.
It would be
not even Jacksonville's going to pass on Trevor Lawrence.
I don't know. It'd be the Jacksonville thing to do, though. I'm telling you.
The one team that might actually pull that off would be the Cleveland Browns. That would be a Cleveland Browns move for sure.
Yeah. So right now you're saying that Jacksonville is almost guaranteed to take Trevor Lawrence #1.
Yeah, I mean, keep them in a little bit of suspense. You don't want to give it all away. You don't want to show all your cards before the draft. You look at Cincinnati. I mean, Cincinnati last year, we knew they were taking Joe Burrow. Everyone knew it. But right at the end, before the draft, well, I guess right after the Super Bowl, right around this time, everyone's like, Joe Burrow's going first overall to the Bengals. And then one reporter comes out and goes, well, they're actually thinking about Chase Young. There's some thoughts about that too. And then we started hearing all about whether it's Chase Young or it's going to be Joe Burrow. So I think it's just kind of the same thing in Jacksonville. There's some media people out there looking for a story, and they're always twisting words and making things out of nothing.
All right, so I'm with you. I think that there's no way that Jacksonville's going to pass on Trevor Lawrence. I think they're going to go with Trevor Lawrence. I don't see a reason for them to definitely pass on that. And then you look at the #2 overall pick in the draft, which is the New York Jets. And there has been speculation that a lot of teams out there are trying to reach out for Sam Darnold because everybody knows that Deshaun Watson's one of his preferred destinations is the New York Jets. So if for some reason, because we've heard that the Houston Texans have come out and said that they're not going to trade Watson, but Watson has said that if you don't trade me, I'm sitting out. So the ball's kind of in Houston's court in a way because it's either they trade him and they lose him or they don't trade him and he sits out anyway. So the ball's kind of in their court on what they're going to do. But I'm going to take a shot in the dark on this one, and I'm going to say I don't believe that the Jets actually draft a quarterback. I don't think it's going to happen. I think with the way I
don't think you're going to draft a quarterback. I mean, you got Sam Darnold, and I'm not saying Sam Darnold is elite. He's going to be a Hall of Famer, but I see Sam Darnold as that very good, above-average starter for a long time in the NFL. He had nobody on that team. I mean, come on. When your leading rusher for your team is 37-year-old Frank Gore, okay, I mean, you got nobody to throw to. You have what, Jamison Crowder?
They had Jamison Crowder, Bernard Berrios.
I mean, let me look that up, but I'm pretty sure that Crowder led that team by a lot in catches. And nothing against Crowder, but if that's your answer at wide receiver, I mean, that's how are you giving Darnold a guy like Jamison Crowder? And again, not that the guy's horrible. He's a solid wide receiver, but is he a #1 wide receiver? I don't know about that.
I think they go offensive line here, though. I think
you have to go offensive line. If you have any chances at all of making Darnold something, you have to go off of offensive line.
And I would pick Penny Sewell out of Oregon.
Yes. I think that's where you go with that, honestly. And yeah, I'm looking right now, and so your top receiver last year for the Jets was Jamison Crowder, and he had 59 catches. 59. So your top guy had 59 catches, but you got to go offensive line because I'm telling you, if Darnold had some time to throw the ball, he could make very good players out of those receivers. They might pick up a free agent wide receiver. It's not going to be a big name, but a solid slot guy that could make it work in there. So I think they'll be all right, but they need to go offensive line. Then there's no question. There's no thinking about who you're going to take. It's got to be offensive line.
Well, that's the interesting thing, though, too, because if they do end up trading Darnold, but they would have to get Watson if they're going to trade Darnold. And then the interesting thing is, even if you go offensive line, the thing is that would they for sure go offensive line, or would they actually indeed draft a receiver? Because you're saying their top receiver had 59 catches. So they could potentially draft a receiver because you have a Jamar Chase, you have a Waddle, you have a Smith. So you have available receivers out there sitting at number 2. If you wanted to take a receiver, you definitely could take a receiver. And then you come to number 3, which is the Miami Dolphins. That is another preferred destination of Deshaun Watson. And we've heard several times that, Tua is not – he just wasn't that last year. He didn't live up to the hype like everybody was trying to say he was going to. Miami's not even sure if Tua is their future. So what is Miami going to do? I mean, obviously, I don't think they're going to draft another quarterback. I think you're going to see him draft a receiver here. And if they're going to draft a receiver, I think they're going to go with Jamar Chase. I think that's where they're going to go. So
yeah, I could see that. I could see him taking Chase. But the Dolphins are in a very, very interesting situation. You're essentially one game from the playoffs, one game that you needed some help, but you're one game from the playoffs, and you have the number 3 pick in the draft thanks to the Houston Texans. Think about that. You're almost in the playoffs, and you have a top 3 pick in the draft. You can do almost anything with this. The Dolphins, this is where they need to make their move. They got better. They got way better last year, and that defense is lights out. I'd put that defense up against any defense in the league, especially their secondary. So
they need help offensively. That's what they need.
They do. I mean, you have to go all offense here. You don't need anything on defense. Your defense is set up until the last game of the year, and you could throw that one out because it was the Buffalo Bills who were playing out of their minds going into that last game. But going to that last game of the year, you were giving up 16 points a game, which was tops in the NFL. And then, all the Bills came in and did drop 52 on you in the last week. But still, that defense, obviously, that's not where they need to go. They need offensive help.
Yeah, so I'm going to say –
don't get me wrong. They got a solid receiver in Devontae Parker, and he's the weapon that they have. And so, yeah, he's going to have a lot of catches. He's going to be – but they need someone to pair with him.
That's why I'm saying that they're going to go with Jamar Chase. If I had to choose, they're going to choose Jamar Chase. And then we'll do our last 2. So we'll do 4 and 5, which number 4, you have the Atlanta Falcons. So the Atlanta Falcons, this could kind of get interesting because, Matt Ryan's getting a little older. When is Matt Ryan going to retire? Or at some point, is the Atlanta Falcons going to trade Matt Ryan? Well, I guess you never know. So does the Atlanta Falcons shock some people here? And do they draft a quarterback in Justin Fields at number 4?
That's a tough call, and only because Ohio State quarterbacks transitioning to the NFL has not gone good. It has not gone well at all. And so do you take another gamble on another Ohio State quarterback? I don't know. And I don't know what the right answer is in that. But you do have to think of the future eventually behind Matt Ryan because you're right, he's not going to play forever. But I don't know.
I'm going to take a shot in the dark, and I'm going to say that they're going to shock people, and they're going to draft a quarterback right here. And I'm going to say that they're going to end up taking Justin Fields because they know that Matt Ryan's getting up there, and it's going to be time. So they're going to end up shocking and taking a quarterback at number 4. And then you have number 5, which actually – so number 5, you have the Cincinnati Bengals, which they had essentially the 1 or 2 pick right in their pocket. And then they chose to win a few of their last 3 games. They went out and won 2 of their last 3, and that moved them up to actually number 5 now. So they have the number 5 pick. So they lost out on basically getting Penny Sewell on the offensive line because he's going to go somewhere between 2, 3, and 4. I don't see him making it past that. They don't need a quarterback because they got Burrow. They're going to essentially miss out. What I'm saying, they're going to essentially miss out on probably Smith. Maybe Jamar Chase falls to 5. Maybe he does. And then you see the reuniting between Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow from the LSU days. You could potentially see it. But I don't know.
You could. I mean, I get you could, I suppose, but Burrow can't throw the ball from his back. So even though it's not going to be there for the guy that you want, obviously, you got to look offensive line. I don't see this any other way for Cincinnati.
But
really don't.
There's not another offensive lineman that's good enough to be in the top 5. Penny Sewell's the only one that's good enough to be in the top 5.
I mean, I know, but we've seen teams stretch before, and it's so tough. But then do you trade that pick away and wait and go a little later in the first round and then take your offensive lineman? I don't know. Because there could be teams looking to move up at that point. If you're a Detroit, you're probably going to try to move up in the draft. If you're the Patriots, I'm sure the Patriots would move up in the draft for sure.
Oh yeah, definitely, because the Patriots need a quarterback. So they're going to either try and trade for somebody, either sign a free agent, or they're going to move up in the draft and draft somebody. All right, so I'm going to say right now that I think that they're going to it's tough, but I'm going to say they're going to go defense because they do need some help on the defensive side. So I think at this point is where you're going to see your first defender off the board.
I can see.
All right, so that was the end of our first 5-pick NFL draft here. So before we call it a show, J-Mac, why don't you go ahead and tell everybody a little bit about our Friday show that is coming up? Okay, and he had some technical difficulties, but for what we have coming up on Friday, we're actually starting a NHL show this Friday. I don't know how many of you actually got to see our show on Tuesday. That's an all MLB show, but that is starting on Tuesdays. And then Fridays, we have an NHL show. And I'll tell you, the NHL show is going to be good. We're going to talk anything about predictions, what's currently going on in the NHL. We're going to talk trades. I mean, pretty much anything you can think about in the NHL, we are going to cover it. So look forward to that. We haven't established a time yet. It'll probably be, since we're on the West Coast, it'll probably be about 7, 8 on the West Coast. So Central Time, it'll probably be somewhere around like 10 Central. So look out for that on Friday night because tell you what, it is going to be a very, very awesome show. It's going to be lit. with me and J-Mac being a Red Wings fan, of course, we don't have much to look forward to in the NHL style, but
Being Red Wings fans,
right.
we look
So-
to rebuilding for another year for the 7th or 8th year in a row. It's
Another
insane.
year, we're going to be rebuilding for like another 5 or 6 years.
I don't
But
know, it's crazy. I
else-
missed what you said about the new show, but yeah, I'm excited. Like I was saying last time we were on Sportsminute before this, we had started going off on an NHL rant, and we're like, no, save it for the show, save it for the show. So, did you drop the name already?
I did not yet.
Okay, so I think that's what I was going to do. So Friday, have we come up with a time yet, by the way?
So I told everyone on the western side, it'll probably be, I'm assuming, about 7 or 8 on the western side.
Yeah.
And in central, it'll be about 9, 10, and then
Yeah. That sounds about right. And yeah, so look for that and check it out. We are going to have the ASAP Network NHL show. It's going to be called What the Puck.
What the Puck. And it's going to
There
be
you
a
go.
very, very good show. So let's look forward to it. And I've got nothing else left to say. J-Mac, you have anything remaining?
No, just look for that show on Friday. Join us again on Sportsminute on Saturday. Vic will be back with us. We missed you tonight, Vic. We hope you get better and can come back with us on Saturday. We were live on Twitter tonight for the first time, so anyone that saw that, please, get us out there, retweet us, get our name out there. This is all for the greater good. Last thing was Anchor. I don't know if we talked about Anchor, but we actually we're on Anchor. We'll give us about 48 hours, and we'll have this put on there. And then if you didn't get a chance to watch us live, you can listen to us on Anchor. And if you want to do what we do, you want a podcast. We're more than podcasters now. Let's face it, we're sports analysts. But you want to start by podcasting, Anchor's got all the tools available for you to do that, and they will help you out on all that. They'll distribute it for you at no cost to you. It's absolutely free. And you would go to anchor.fm.com to do that.
All right. Well, thank you very much. And so for that, I hope everybody has a fantastic night, and we will see you again for another episode coming up very, very soon, which, of course, is Saturday. You'll see us again for Sports Minute. Tomorrow night is Real Talk. And please tune in for What the Fuck on Friday. So everybody have a fantastic night, and we will see you again.
Peace.
So she knows how much is both. I don't.
All sports, all plays. Yeah. All sports, all plays. All sports, all plays. 365, we making a plays. We talking the game, get you through the days. Great eye in the court, the dime in the lane. Variety, topics never the same. All presentation, sports information. In the airways, taking the nation. All sport, all plays. Like working your faces. Grace up the field, so tie the laces. All sports, all plays. Network. All sports, all plays. Network. We on top of our game. All sports, all plays. All sports, all plays.